Want to boost your ad agency's profits like instantly? You're in the right place. If you're running Google or Meta ads and your revenue's been flatlining, it's time to flip the script. In today's video, I'm about to share a fail-proof revenue model that will completely transform the way you scale your agency. And the best part? This revenue model works for all kind of social media marketing agency. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to implement a game-changing strategy that not only increases your client satisfaction but also supercharges your bottom line. So grab a pen, take some notes, and let's dive in, because the days of stagnant profits are over. Okay. So, the easiest one is number one is hourly. When it comes to PPC, there are a number of ways to get paid, but this is probably the easiest one. Now, this is also the one where you probably are gonna make the least amount of money, or maybe you would just do this for consulting charges. Sometimes I will have clients call me up and say, hey, we don't necessarily want to hire somebody full-time. We don't want to hire an agency. We just want somebody to go in and check out our campaigns and optimize them and make sure they're running okay. And that's fine. We'll just charge an hourly rate. That can be anywhere between, I've charged as little as $50 when I was getting started, which I would not suggest, and then as high as $300 an hour. So it really just depends. With that said, if you're actually doing the work, you're obviously going to be going into these campaigns, and you need to know Google Ads really well. Or you could just say, we charge $200 an hour. You keep a 100, and then you hire somebody else to, you outsource that other one for a 100, or maybe you outsource it for 50. I don't know. It's really up to you. When it comes to hourly charges, I tend to charge a little bit more though, because when you go in and you make changes, one of those changes might save a company $1,000 of ad spend. And I make sure I point that out to show them that they got great value. I also will charge hourly rates for consulting. I'm actually get hired by companies to come in and work with their staff internally and do some training. So that's another place that hourly works out really well. I've got clients that will literally hire me. They've set their accounts up, and it's not their fault. They didn't do a very good job because they didn't know what they were doing. And I'll just go in and spend an hour just making changes. Other times, somebody wants me to come in. Now they don't want me to make changes. They just want me to consult. So we'll do a Zoom call, and I'll walk them through the changes I would make. And I record that call, and then I send it to them. So I really don't do any work. I'm just kind of telling them the changes I would make. So there's a number of different ways you can do that. Next, percentage of ad spend. In this example, you are looking at just what it sounds like. If somebody spends $1,000 a month, you're going to charge them 20%. Now the one thing about this is habit set in stone, because what sometimes a campaign, maybe you say, okay, the campaigns, your plan, you're budgeting $1,000 and maybe the campaign only spends $500 the first month. So now instead of you making $200 you're making a $100, which I would never do that anyway because that's too low. But you need to obviously have that conversation with the client up front. You could say, yeah, it's going to be, a 20% of your advertising spend, or a minimum of X, okay. So it's really up to you how you phrase it. The problem with this one that I've run into in the past, I used to do this, was we used to charge somebody 25, 30%. And then at the end of the month, we would go in and figure out how much their account spent and we would bill them that amount of money. That's obviously a lot of legwork at the end of the month or the beginning of the following month. So in January, if they spent $2,000 and we were charging them 30% in February 1st, we would go and figure that out and charge them, $600 or whatever it might be. And I did it to the penny. So if it was $11.50, it was 30% of that. Just a lot of legwork involved, and you never really were sure quite how much you were gonna spend. Another way to do it is just say, okay, we're budgeting $1,000 this month. You are, as Mr. Client, and we're going to charge you 20%. So it's going to be 20%. We're going to bill you up front. I would say always bill up front. Never do it in the rear, because if for some reason a client comes on bad times, guess what? Now you have already done the work and you're not going to get paid. That has happened to me in the past. So just something to learn from. Next is percentage of ad spend. So you could say an example of 20% and or minimum charge. I was kind of alluding to this one previously, because rather than saying, all right, we'll take 20%, we're going to charge you 20%, but we're also going to say it's a minimum of a $200 charge. So if that campaign was only going to spend $1,000, if it doesn't spend $1,000, you don't lose any money on that. So if you're going to do the percentage of ad spend, this is definitely the model I would choose, a percentage of ad spend and or a minimum charge. Some people might say, we'll charge you 20% or a minimum of $200, or 30% or a minimum of $300. They may say, you know what? We're going to charge you 15% in the minimum of $500. It's really up to you. The next is performance-based or cost per lead. If you're going to do this, whoever's running your ads, whether that's you or somebody else, should really make sure you know what you're doing. This can be highly lucrative if you're good at it. The problem is that if you submit leads and they turn out to be bad leads, then all you're doing is fielding phone calls from your client or emails because it's a bad lead and they don't want to pay for it. So for example, if you were working with an attorney and he says, I'll pay you $40 a lead. Well, if you can go out with your Google ads and acquire that lead for less than $40, meaning rather than that lead going to him, it would just come to you as the agency. You could turn around. Let's say you got that lead for $20, you could turn around and sell that lead to him at $40, and you make a $20 profit. A little bit more legwork, right? You've got to figure out how much you're spending, and you've got to really crack down on those campaigns. But I do know people that literally are digital nomads. They kind of just take their laptop and travel the world and work with companies and set up these cost per lead systems. But at the beginning of the month, the disadvantage of this is you have absolutely no idea how much you are going to earn. You know, over time you can definitely figure it out. But once again, you don't know if that client comes on hard times and you lose them, you can sell those leads to somebody else. Sure. But you gotta go find somebody else to sell those leads to, which isn't that hard if you're really good at lead generation, because you could just contact any company and say, hey, I've got 5 leads right now, hot leads that are looking for an attorney in your area. Do you want to work out a deal? Right? It's always easy to sell to somebody when you already have the leads in your pocket. But once again, you are paying for those up front. So that's just a different model. So the next one, and this is actually the model that I use, is strictly flat rate. I will take a look at, when I'm qualifying the client, and we'll teach you how to do that. I'm talking to them, figuring out approximately how much they're going to spend, or we're discussing that, and I will base my rate depending on that. Now, I don't necessarily come out and ask them, hey, what's your advertising budget right away? Sometimes they come out right away and ask, hey, how much do you charge? And I'm going to say, well, it really just depends on you as the company and what you're spending, because I can't charge the same amount for a client who's spending $1,000 as I can a client who's spending $10,000, because a client who's spending $10,000, there's going to be a lot more changes that need to be made in the campaign and a lot more management. So their fee is going to be higher. I typically will have a number I will not drop below. Now, when I was starting out my agency, I literally had people that were paying me $100 a month to manage their ads. I would not suggest doing that. Right? With that said, it got to a point I had to increase my rates. I had so many small little clients that I needed to increase my rates and get rid of some of those. We actually doubled our rates at one point and did not lose a single client. That's how bad we undercut ourselves. So I want to use that as an example of what not to do. The way I look at it is when I'm qualifying a client, I will say, approximately how much do you make per client? And they're like, what do you mean? When you go out and when you serve as a client on average, what is the average job? And if they say, $200, then I'm like, well, that's going to be pretty easy to get that person 2 clients in a month. And what I mean by that is if I charge $400, well, they have to recoup my fee before they get a return on their investment. Right? So I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm pretty sure in a pest control industry, I can get you 2 clients a month to cover my fees. And that's how I kind of rate clients, or how I decide what I'm going to charge them. Because I've gotten into the situation before where I will charge somebody $1,500 a month. And the problem with that is I have to get them a lot more leads to cover their advertising spend, to cover my fees, as well as to get them a profit. Right? Because they still have to pay, their person to go out and do those jobs or supplies that are involved in those jobs. There's gas money. If I charge too much, then they're going, wait a minute. We're only spending $1,000 a month and you want to charge us $1,500. And there are agencies that do that. That's their prerogative. I just, it's a lot harder sell. With that said, if I'm charging a client $400 and they're spending $1,000 a month, it's much easier for me to say, okay, you know what? In my head I'm going, alright, I need if they get $200 a client, I need to get them 5 jobs to cover their ad spend, 2 jobs that cover mine. That's 7 jobs and then the rest is profit. Can I do that with $1,000 ad spend depending on their industry and where they're at? Probably. So it's much easier to do. The another advantage of this one is I know exactly how much I'm going to make on the first day of every month. So literally I set up all the billing on the first day of the month. If a client starts in the middle, I will say, alright, I'm charging you $500 a month. You're starting on 15th. So what we'll do is we will prorate the charge for the rest of the month. So it'd be what? Approximately $250. I'll charge you the 2.50 on the day that we launch, which is the middle of the month. And then I will, on the first of the month, your normal rates will apply and they will be charged to your account. So literally on the first day of every month, my email inbox just fills up with Stripe charges. And I know before the first of the month exactly how much money I'm going to make at a minimum, because I know I've got the rest of the entire month to land some other clients, some other setup fees, other consulting and hourly charges, and you get the idea. It's a really nice thing to know, and it's easy for billing. I literally set it up, and I don't have to do anything. Once I set it up, it automatically charges the client every single month that charge. There's really minimal legwork because it takes me about 30 seconds to set it up whenever they sign on as a client and we are good to go. Now, do I also charge somebody $400 a month if they're spending, $3,000, or let's say we build this client up? They started at 1,000, but now they're spending 3,500. I have different thresholds. I typically will talk to a client and say, all right, approximately how much are we going to spend a month, and go from there. Because if they're going to spend $35,100 a month or more, I'm already charging them more because there's just more work involved. Otherwise, I just usually do like a flat rate until they spend $35,100, and then I tell them it's going to go up, and they're always like, well, how much? I'm like, we work with our clients. We're not going to double your rates or anything like that. Typically I'll increase it a $100, $150 once they hit that threshold. But 99.9% of the time you're going to know going in, what they're going to want to spend because they need to know if you can handle it. If they're going to come in and spend $200, I can't take that on as a client because I'm not going to work for less than $200 a month. I typically bottom mine out at $400, but I don't charge the same for everyone. I literally will have clients across town from each other in the same industries. They are not competing, but one of them I already know is going to be more high maintenance. I already know it's going to be more work. I'll charge a little bit more. There's other clients. I just want to take them on. They were awesome. I know these people. I know I can help them. I know I can make them a monster return. One of my best friends, I still charge him $250 a month. Actually, a couple of them because they make such a ridiculous amount of money. They're low maintenance. It's probably $230 or $220 of that per month as profit. Okay? I don't charge the same for everyone. If it's going to be more work, I charge more money. If I know I'm going to have to set up more landing pages and manage more campaigns, it's going to be more money, but it really is up to you. I don't post my prices for this reason. When I talk to clients, I tell them that, literally listen, this is what I charge you based on your campaign. My prices are not the same because sometimes they'll refer me to somebody and say, yeah, he charges me $500 a month. Well, that may not be the same for that person. But sometimes it might be. Right? I've got a lot of clients at $500 or $600 an hour, because I'm comfortable with that price. It's really what you're comfortable with charging. It's what you're comfortable with being able to provide a return on, and it's really just a personal preference. Once again, really cool thing. You don't have to stick to the same one. You can try different ones for different clients. It's really up to you, and you can change it anytime. Alright? If you found today's strategy valuable, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. You don't want to miss out on the next level ad agency hacks we're dropping every week. And hey, drop a comment below telling me which part of this fail-proof model you're going to implement first. I'd love to hear from you. Remember, this is your chance to not just grow your agency, but to scale it smartly with results that speak for themselves. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one, where we'll dive into even more ways to accelerate your success.